The panels will screw into the pre-drilled holes on top of the purlins. Here you can see that from the peak purlin, which is the third one out on this job, coming back to the shore, the bottom lip of the purlin is facing toward the shore. Beyond the peak, on the fourth and fifth purlins, the bottom lip faces out toward the lake. The columns and purlins have different tag numbers that identify them individually or as a group. The tag number can be found on the parts and also on the print sheet. Always refer to the print sheet for each job to help determine the correct part's location. Now, mark the center of each column. The column is 2.5 inches wide, so dead center on the column will be measured at 1 1/4 inch from the outside edge. Mark this on each column. Now, referring to your particular print, measure straight out from the center of the second column and mark the difference in column height from the first column. In this example it is 6 inches, and so we place a mark exactly 6 inches out from the column. You must make the mark in a straight line out from the column. Again, this measurement is the difference in column height from the previous column. Move to the next column, which is the peak column in this example. The difference in height between the previous column and the peak column is also 6 inches. We'll add this 6 inches to the 6 inches we marked down on the middle column to get 12 inches. Place this mark 12 inches out from the peak column. Now we'll measure the pitch of the roof. Start exactly on the 1 1/4 mark in the center of the first column and lay the tape measure across the 6 and 12 inch marks just placed on the deck in front of the columns. This gives you the pitch of the roof. Read the tape at the 6 inch mark in front of the second column and write down the measurement. In this instance, it's 5 feet 9 1/8 inches. Then continue to mark in front of the peak column and record it as well. Here it's 11 feet 9 5/8 inches. We'll now begin the installation of the roof panels. Here, we're restacking all of the roof panels to ensure that they are flush on the end for measuring. This is very important because we'll measure from the near end to get the roof measurements for the purlins. This is the bottom side and needs to be flush as it is furthest away from the peak of the kit dock roof. Use a pair of clamps to hold the panels securely together after they've been flushed at the bottom end. This will help them to stay flush during measuring and marking of the top panel, which will be the pattern for the rest of the panels. Next, measure a line-up hole for the purlins. Measure 1 foot 7 1/2 inches from the edge of the roof panel and make a mark. Then, to make it easier down the line, we'll measure the distance from the first rib out to that mark, which in this case turns out to be 5 1/4 inches. Come up 2 feet 2 inches from the bottom of the roof panel and mark it. This is the amount of the roof overhang toward the end of the finger pier. Then again, measure 5 1/4 inches from the first rib and mark it. This is the center of the purlin. The accuracy of this mark is important because it must line up with the pre-drilled hole in the purlin. Once the center is determined, we need to mark 2 more holes on each side. Measure 2 feet 2 inches up from the bottom of the roof panel and eye it to the center of the valley, placing a mark on each side for drilling into the purlin. Now we'll measure for the next center hole. For this installation, our next measurement is 7 feet 11 3/4 inches from the bottom and 5 1/4 inches from the rib. Place a mark here. Then continue to mark 2 more holes on each side of center at the 7 foot 11 3/4 inch marks for the other 2 attachment points on the purlin. We're now ready to mark the holes for the peak. Always measuring from the bottom, we measure 13 feet 11 1/2 inches and 5 1/4 inches from the rib and make a mark. This is the center peak measurement and will be a ½ inch down from the top of the 14-foot panel. Now you can just mark the other holes a ½ inch down from the top and in the center of the valley. Since this is the peak, we will make twice as many marks, 6 in all, to secure the roof panel to the peak purlin. Next, we'll pre-drill the top panel to use as a pattern sheet, scoring the panel underneath in the process. This pattern sheet is then raised up on the roof to check that all of the measurements are correct before proceeding. Align the edge of the sheet to the edge of the purlin, and also align the pre-drilled hole to the center hole on the purlin. Double check that the outside edge of the sheet is in alignment with the purlin. Once it is verified that the measurements are correct, you can drill the lap holes and the remainder of the panels using the score marks made earlier. The lap holes are marked where the panels will overlap each other on the roof. Begin by placing a mark 2 inches from the bottom, then another one at the 1-foot location. Then every 2 feet the rest of the way down. This places a mark at the 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13-foot locations along the edge of the roof panels. The last mark is about a foot from the top of the panel, or 13 feet. Making this last mark a foot shy of the peak leaves plenty of clearance for attaching the roof cap later. These are the lap marks. These marks will be drilled along with the remaining scored holes. Because of their position next to the edge of the roofing panel, clamp along each of the lap marks before drilling to ensure that the panels stay together and that the lap holes drill evenly through the stack. Try not to create any bends in the stack as you drill, as this could cause an uneven drill pattern. Continue to clamp the panels together near each drill hole. Always keep the drill as straight as possible. Now drill the remaining holes on the pre-scored marks. Here at the peak end, we're using a board underneath to keep the panels together. Continue to drill through the score marks on the stack of the roofing panels. Once the remaining panels have been marked and drilled, lift the roof panels into position and secure into place with the roofing screws. Place a board across the panels as you proceed for safety.